This is the doomsday clock. Right now, it stands at exactly 90 seconds to midnight, the closest to global catastrophe the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists has ever placed it. Look at the global map today, and you can see why. For the first time in decades, three major geopolitical crises are erupting simultaneously. We have a grueling proxy war in Ukraine, expanding conflicts across the Middle East, and a massive military buildup surrounding the Taiwan Strait. When we imagine a Third World War, we usually picture a deliberate choice, a rogue leader making a calculated decision to launch a nuclear strike. Mutually assured destruction, the doctrine that a nuclear attack guarantees both sides will be wiped out, is supposed to prevent anyone from actually pressing that button. But history shows us that global wars rarely start on purpose. The real existential threat to humanity today comes from the invisible, mechanical pathways of an accidental escalation. In June 1914, Gavrilo Princip assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo. On paper, it was a localized, isolated act of nationalist violence in the Balkans, yet Europe was bound by a rigid system of alliances. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, which forced Russia to mobilize, which triggered Germany and France to enter the fray. These pre-existing pacts bypassed diplomatic decision-making entirely, pulling the world's great powers into a chain reaction they couldn't stop. That single spark resulted in millions of soldiers trapped in static trench warfare, enduring years of industrial slaughter over a conflict none of them initiated. The global security landscape of 2026 looks uncomfortably similar to 1914. Modern defense pacts and intertwined security guarantees have created a rigid framework where a local incident can instantly force nuclear-armed nations into a broader conflict. Today's international system is buckling under what defense analysts call simultaneous crises. Instead of managing a single tense standoff, the U.S. and its allies are dealing with active threats on multiple continents at the exact same time. In Eastern Europe, the conflict in Ukraine operates as a high-stakes proxy war between Russia and NATO. The primary risk here is accidental, a stray drone or a misfired missile crossing the border into Poland or Romania, which could legally trigger a collective military response from the entire alliance. Meanwhile, in the Pacific, China's military has accelerated its live-fire simulations of a naval blockade around Taiwan. Since Taiwan produces nearly 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors, the tiny chips that power almost all modern electronics, a blockade would paralyze the global economy overnight. Add to this North Korea's rapidly accelerating weapons program. Pyongyang is testing intercontinental ballistic missiles, rockets designed to deliver nuclear warheads thousands of miles away, while forging new military partnerships that directly supply artillery to the conflict in Europe. The international system can usually isolate and absorb one of these events, but when multiple crises interact, they stretch diplomatic resources to the breaking point, making it incredibly easy for a rapid escalation to outpace a leader's ability to react. The United Nations and the rules-based international order were built after World War II, specifically to mediate these exact types of disputes. Today, those institutions are fracturing, failing to effectively check aggressive territorial expansion. We have also lost our nuclear guardrails. Major arms control agreements like the INF Treaty and New START, pacts that legally limited missile stockpiles and allowed mutual military inspections, have entirely collapsed or been suspended. This node map illustrates the math of proliferation. 9 nations now possess nuclear weapons. With each new actor, the intersecting lines of conflict multiply, increasing the variables for a miscalculation. As treaties disintegrate, the direct crisis hotlines between these states are effectively severed. The institutional safety nets that prevented a global war for 80 years have degraded right as the geopolitical tightrope is thinnest. Without those safety nets, the mechanisms for an accidental strike are entirely technical. Modern arsenals rely on hyperspeed weaponry and unregulated drone incursions that cross international borders in a matter of seconds. The true wildcard in this environment is artificial intelligence. Militaries are integrating autonomous weapon systems that operate at decision speeds far beyond human oversight. If an AI radar misinterprets a civilian aircraft as a threat, it could automatically execute a retaliatory strike before a diplomat receives the alert. This technological risk is amplified by isolated or aging leaders operating under a siege mentality, where paranoia makes a fatal misjudgment highly probable. Modern warfare's heavy reliance on automation has erased the single most valuable resource in a crisis: the time required to pick up a phone, verify a false alarm, and de-escalate. We cannot rely solely on the threat of mutually assured destruction to keep the peace in an era of automated, hyper-fast warfare. History proves that passive deterrence fails. In the 1930s, Western democracies exhausted by World War I followed a policy of appeasement, offering concessions to territorial expansions in the hope of avoiding another conflict. That policy only emboldened fascist regimes. World War II was a preventable tragedy, but the failure to establish robust, early deterrence gave Adolf Hitler the time to arm and expand unchecked. Expecting the sheer terror of nuclear weapons to maintain global stability while simultaneously abandoning active diplomacy is the exact behavioral pattern that led to history's worst catastrophes. A deliberate, premeditated Third World War remains highly unlikely. No major power calculates that it can survive a species-level nuclear exchange. But our global security apparatus has evolved into a rigid, automated machine, vibrating under the pressure of concurrent crises and hanging entirely by the thread of human error. War is not inevitable. Avoiding it requires world leaders to actively choose human life and diplomatic dialogue over national pride before our automated systems make the choice for us.